Your Creative Push, episode 169.
What are you going to do? Kill me if I'm dead? I'll be doing something different. And if I'm not dead, I'm going to bloody learn from this.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Saddhasura. Saddhasura is an artist, illustrator, and musician who is procuring and creating to then connect creative works to people who love them. He has also taught meditation and mindfulness for over 15 years. And Saddhasura, thank you so much for coming on the show today. You are a person who has been through many different walks of life, and I was wondering if you could start out by kind of giving us a brief synopsis of kind of your human history, if you will.
Yeah, that's a really good way of describing it. And thanks for inviting me on. I was just really pleased to be on the show. I listen to the show a lot, if not addictively at the moment. My human history has been, in one respect, quite ordinary, but in another respect, it's been quite specific, and it's obviously been specific to me. I came from a folky family I was born in the 60s and 70s, so I was always around creative people. My mum and dad were folk musicians. My father built musical instruments. He was an engineer, and my mum worked in a local school. We had enough, but we weren't comfortable by any stretch. So my dad would make things if we didn't have them. So my mum wanted to play the harp, so my dad built one. And that was kind of the theme that ran throughout my formative memories of living and being in the home. A lot of people around playing music. I was really good at art. I also grew up in the disco era. And I was just remembering this the other day. I used to dance as a kid, man. And people would say, "Oh, your John's a really good dancer." And I really wanted to be a dancer, but that never happened. I ended up going down the musical route myself to a degree, played French horn, played guitar, but I also realized I could draw, and that really impressed the adults that were around me. And kind of bummed out of school when I was about 17, 18, did A-levels, which I don't know what the equivalent might be other places of the world, but they're the exams that get you into university. Didn't really get anywhere. Sort of scrambled around doing different illustration and design jobs, and was doing okay with that. Sort of presenting myself as an illustrator, present myself as a designer, but with no formal training. And I was going to get married. I would be about 28, so don't know when that might have been. Maybe it's the early 90s, and my girlfriend was a nurse, and I thought, I'd do that. That'll be really good for me. And that'd be really good for the family. I'll be able to have a steady gig. And that's when I had to majorly grow up. Well, my relationship with her didn't last, but I ended up being a student nurse in my late 20s, abandoned the job it was shrinking. There was a lot of computer technology taking over a lot of the different aspects of graphic design. And I had to grow up rather quick, and I had to, really apply myself, and became a nurse. And then, as time went on, became specialized in children's cancer nursing, which is what I've pretty much done for the last 20 years, with a variety of different creative projects sort of coming forward and then sinking back down into the background. The most recent one being a venture out as a student jazz guitarist when I lived in London, which was absolutely amazing. But here I am, 50, and just lost my job, realizing that I'm probably not going to make it as a musician. So again, looking back into the skills that I seem to have been blessed with, and trying to think about ways of not only utilizing those to move forward and maybe earn a living, but reflecting on the life experiences I've had looking after families in crisis, and thinking maybe now would be a good time for me to experience the fullness of the human life and to experience the full potential of what I know will come forward. There's one thing I've got real confidence in, and that is, it's just that if I apply myself, something is going to come forward, because it always has done. My life has always borne that out as a truth. So, that's kind of me. Potted history, 5 minutes, 50 years.
5 minutes, 50 years. No, well, so, you have throughout all of those different things, you've had, like you said, the different creative things like bubbling forward and then kind of falling into the background. So what has that kind of been like? Like, why do they come forward and then why do they fall back? Do they go away because of, having to make money and having to go down a different path for different reasons? Or
I think that there's been a few things. I think that has very much been a central player in just pushing those sort of activities to the back. I was always studying as a nurse. There was always a need to be engaged in some aspect of postgraduate study. So that played its part. And there were the practical things. I studied to join the order, which I'm now part of, the Buddhist order. And there was the ladies. And all right, I'm a Buddhist, but I'm not a monastic Buddhist, so I had relationships that came into that and went away. But I think more than anything else, the usual players seem to make themselves known. Doubt and indecision. I really worked hard, for instance, at being a jazz guitarist. Had a lot of input from a really good musician who taught me an awful lot. And then I was really getting really good, and it was getting really exciting. And then I thought, oh, this is really visible. And I stopped. And it was just down to, I don't, it's difficult to articulate sometimes, but I think it was just like, I'm getting really good at this. It's a bit frivolous. It's not going to get me anywhere. And then the other thing is, one of the things that I've realized over the last few months is the things that I've missed out on are the things I haven't kept my eye on. The expression of keeping your eye on the ball. I haven't kept my eye on the ball. And without that sort of continuity of purpose and that returning back to the project with a clear idea of what your goal is, I think things just drift. It's just, there are threads in the fabric of our lives, and they just get pulled in the tapestry further away from you or nearer to you. And the real skill, I think, looking back on it all, is to try and keep the threads that are really important to you pulled in tight to the weave of what you want to do. And so in short answer, practicalities, doubts, and the circumstances of other strong energies that just pull you in different directions.
Yeah, you mentioned doubt and indecision, and I mean, those are two things that can hold people back from starting something, but they're also, I don't think we touch on it enough in this podcast, because we talk about so much about starting your creative passion, but that idea of when you do start and you have been working at it and you get really good at it, and then all of a sudden it's like this almost real thing that is like a terrifying thing. It's like going up that roller coaster, all the anticipation, and then you're about to go over the edge. You can feel that coming, and it's a good time to hit the emergency brake and kind of pull out, and because it is a terrifying thing to kind of all right, here we go, let's see what happens. And so I think a lot of people could relate to that.
I've got a good friend in Newcastle in the north of England who is part of a 3-piece girl band called Iceni. Hi, Lindsay, how you doing? And she would be a really good person for you to get on the show. She's an incredibly creative person, but she and her buddies wrote a song called "I'm Scared of My Own Genius," and it's the thread of the story that runs through that is just just as you've described. You push and you push and you push, and you think, yes, oh no, and then you really want to go like, I didn't really quite mean to do that. Right. And I think a lot of people get that, particularly in the childhood sort of phase of life. There's a lot of aunts and uncles or a lot of well-meaning neighbors or whoever it is, teachers that stand around and go like, yeah, this is amazing. And somehow the young mind, the young emotional state doesn't have the maturity to sort of absorb the shock of it. And, kids can be cruel too, you become that visible and all your friends might hate on you for being good, which was my experience.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but, it's common. It's so common,
Sure.
It's like, you go, oh, when I was a kid, I was really good at drawing and everybody hated me and tore my work up. And oh, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. I went to art school at one point in my life and the room was full of people that had the same experience.
Yeah, and I think another scary part of that is as you start to build an audience, or as people start to kind of believe you in your role as something, you know what I mean? If they believe that you're, becoming a musician, if they believe that you're becoming an artist, if they appreciate your work, then all of a sudden you see all these eyes on you. But I think that feeling of being a fraud, like, I think that sometimes never goes away for people, and it's a hard thing to do because obviously before you start doing something, you're going to feel like a fraud because you're not that thing yet. You haven't really, all you've said is, I want to be this. But then once you start to become that thing, you still have that feeling, that imposter syndrome, which is like almost impossible to get rid of. And I think that's it's a really scary thing for people when they actually do have people that are, looking at them.
Yeah. And I think that's that whole fear of being the imposter is it's really bolstered by, for me personally, it was by this inconsistency I have. So I say, for instance, I do a pencil sketch, which I did a couple of weeks back, and it was really good. And I was thinking, oh yeah, this is brilliant. So I then pronounced that I'm going to be an illustrator, me and nursing, and I've got this pencil sketch. And then I try and do another one, and I must have pulled the crayons out of the box in the wrong order. It was just an unmitigated disaster. I think, oh my goodness! And it reminded me of being in school when I was playing guitar when I was a kid. I'd be playing away. I used to play in a group with my mum and dad at one point, and we'd be playing folk tunes together, and I'd be just comping the chords in the background, but completely in the pocket. And then the next time mum and dad wanted me to accompany them, I couldn't do it for toffee. And there is that fear of being the imposter. And I think it plays in your mind because the human being is inconsistent by everything about us is constantly changing. And why should it be any different? But, we are inconsistent. So we don't deliver the goods all the time, and people are just waiting to see you fall sometimes, I think, particularly your peer group, I think, in the early years.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree that everybody, and it's an important thing and a good thing to be constantly changing and not like the same person. You should always be learning from your lessons. But so when when everybody's constantly changing, how then do you keep your eye on the ball, like you were talking about before? And if you start out with this passion for something like you have, how do we get back to the point where we can still change but still be interested in that thing? Is it in terms of like pivoting or just like refinding that joy, like finding a way to refine that joy and the reason that we started the thing?
I don't want to get religious.
You can.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay. But my spiritual life has really influenced the way I operate as a human being, and that includes every aspect of my waking and sleeping life. I am a Buddhist, and I might not be. I don't know what is a good Buddhist, to be perfectly honest. But a Buddhist would, and I have used the terminology already, doubt and indecision are classic phrases that come from the schools of meditation. That it's a classic hindrance in the meditative process. And Buddhism has really taught me an awful lot about the ever-changing world, which I've just mentioned. You're a constant flux of changing conditions, so it depends on what you turn up with will make such a difference, will influence so strongly what you're able to present to the world on that day. So with that in mind, when you ask the question, well, how do you keep your eye on the ball? one of the things that I've looked to is starting each day with clear intention. And that very much comes out of the Buddhist tenet. And in Buddhism, the mindfulness is a phrase that's come out into common parlance around the world. Mindfulness is a big seller, it's in industry, it's in commerce, it's being taught to people, and with good results. A human being that is more mindful is no bad thing, but it's just one aspect. It is just one dish that's on offer on the table from the schools of Buddhism, from what the Buddha taught. And mindfulness, you've got standard mindfulness, which we call sati, which is, I am sitting, I can feel I can feel the weight of my body on the chair. I can taste the remnants of, the meal I've just eaten in my mouth. I can smell the lavender that's in my room. So that's sati, but there's another aspect to mindfulness, and that's sampajana. And these are Pali terms, which is the language that Buddhism was first written down in. And sampajana is that continuity of purpose. And I think that's how you keep your eye on the ball. So sampajana with, sati, you're sitting on your cushion meditating. I am experiencing the breath. In, out. That's sati. Sampajana is, I'm sitting meditating. Why am I sitting meditating? I'm sitting meditating because I've been meditating for blah number of weeks, months, years. I have a purpose. There is a sense of direction with it. And I think one of the things we can do as creative people is to, one of the things I'm definitely doing at the moment, really interesting experience about this, which I'll talk about in a moment, is keep a journal, keep things in one space, and write down what's important to you, write down what's really firing you up at that point. And, but also, when things aren't fiery, bear in mind what your continuity of purpose is, and just try and turn up. And, the advice I've heard so much from this podcast, it is so good. And it's really, and I've written it all down. I've got little moleskins that are full of stuff, all these nuggets that have come from this show. And, write them down. And when you're not feeling like you've got something, or like the other day, I did a pencil sketch and it was atrocious, man. You can look back and, you'll have that available to you, and it'll help. And the other thing that came through in one of your more recent podcasts was that sense of a tribe, a sense of community, be around people that are doing the same things. I think all that advice is really good. The story, I was in my hometown, Newcastle, visiting my mum, and I was walking through the streets, and I had a satchel with me, and I had my phone, my iPad in it, and also had my moleskin. And I thought, I should really put my valuables where people can't get to them. And I realized at that point that I could replace the phone and the iPad, but I couldn't replace what was in the moleskin, in the little notebook. So I took that out of my satchel and I buried that one deep in my front pocket. I thought that was an interesting testament to the way my thinking has changed over, in particular, the last month.
Yeah, it shows you what's important. And
yeah.
If my laptop ever got stolen, I would, I could replace the laptop. I wouldn't be sad about the laptop, but like all of the stuff that I've like created or half created or quarter created, like things that I've started, I would miss them so much. And I think that's also telling of, like I said, the things that I've just barely started to create, all these different, pieces of writing or music videos or whatever. It just shows you that it's important that I need to create them. If these half finished things are so important to me, then I couldn't imagine what the fully created thing would be. So that inspires me too to create. But going back to what you're saying about, starting every day with clear intentions, I think that's so important. And just like mindfulness is so important for just everybody to just, and kind of the purpose of the podcast, to just snap out of this like daily routine that you do where you don't even think about the fact that you're not creating or you're not pulling stuff out of yourself. It's just, go to work, come home, and do whatever bad habits that you're used to doing because you've done them for so long. And I think that the mindfulness and the continuity of purpose to just remember the reason, just to get back to the origins of why you want something done. And you're right, writing down those nuggets so that you do have that kind of inspiration to look back to.
It's a rich life when you choose to do that rather than veg out. Because for years, when I was in nurse's residence, after a breakdown of a relationship, and I was living in central London right next to a tube station. So you go, oh, these people who you don't know, thousands of them, or your neighbours, all the kids coming across from Europe, and it's just jam full of tourists. And I just used to sit in this ground floor room, looking out these big windows, watching loads of YouTube and DVDs, and just cracking another one, know. And I'd start I'd go and get 4 cans of beer, and then I got to the stage where I was like, 4 might not do tonight. Why don't, And it was just like, how on earth did I get here? And just put the brakes on, man. And when you choose not to do that, when you choose to make a clear decision, and you begin to see the richness of what is available to you as the alternative. And it might not make you money, but it's going to really improve the quality of your life. It's going to be the thing that allows you to, I've heard the terminology of the source, the divine, the Godhead, creativity, chi. It's that which is outside of ourselves that we do not understand. It's the great mystery. And when you put aside bad habits, and there are other things, I ate so much food. Because I used to, confession, I used to order pizza online, and this guy used to deliver it, and he was the only human being I might see that evening. I'd just be on my computer, and then ding dong, this guy turns up with a pizza. It's just, oh my God, why don't I just take my soul out and kill it there and then on the spot, man? But getting back to the positive, when you do realize it and you start to engage it, and it's like, oh my God, it's like being resuscitated, it's just like, I'm alive. Oh, this feels really good. Oh, this is feeling really scary. And, just keep going with it. 'Cause it is going to be scary. It's always going to be scary. If it wasn't scary, you wouldn't be taking it, if you weren't taking it seriously, rather.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be scary. So, scary's good, especially at Halloween.
Ooh, yeah, scary is good. That's a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
And I've been there too, with both with both the drinking and the ordering pizza online. I've been there, and I know that it's just, you get into this like a habit, but also just like a lifestyle, and it's just a way of kind of pushing away the thing that you're supposed to be most of the time, I think, and it's a way of kind of hiding that and pushing it down. And so what I was wondering was, because I know like recently you've had, with losing the job and stuff, like how, because when you first reached out to me, it was such like a positive email, and it really touched me, like what you had to say about the podcast and stuff. And since we've been back and forth, I think you had a bike accident too. Just a whole bunch of shit has been happening to you. So
it's great.
So I want to know, like, how do you maintain such a positive mindset, and just like the idea of pushing forward, and like you're saying, like, what better time than now to be able to kind of delve into the creative and delve into what you're supposed to be doing.
I don't have much of a fucking choice.
I like it. Well, true.
Do you know what I'm saying? I just like it's like, I knew the year was going to be bad when Bowie died. And then, Lemmy was dead. Bowie was dead. My dad was dying. Oh no, my dad's dead too. Oh, that's very, it's just like one thing after another. And it's just, you kind of it's like that sweet saturation of pain that you just think, I don't get any worse than this. So let's sing a happy tune. I didn't kind of go mad, but I just thought, I've got a choice. I can either crumble and let this all really get the better of me, and there was loads of reasons why I really legitimately could have been that person, or I can just see it as a really great opportunity And it reminded me a bit of William Turner, the British painter. He's on a ship once, and he wanted to experience the full fury of the tempest. He wanted to know what the storm felt like. So he got one of the crew to tie him to the mast. And and I just feel like, yeah, tie me to the mast, man. What are you going to do? Kill me if I'm dead? I'll be doing something different. Wow. And if I'm not dead, I'm going to bloody learn from this. And, already I've got no money. I've got nothing. I've got about half a tank of petrol in the car. And I've got to really think about which errands I run in which order, so I can run out in the car and do them all on one time. Because I can't afford just to poodle about and do what I would normally do. And it is terrifying. And the other thing that I'm coming back to religion, because religion is good. Here and now is not bad. And here and now is where I live. Here and now is where Saddhasura is. It's where we're having this conversation. The past is just a string of proteins that are lined up in my brain. And the future is a possibility and based in fantasy and projection. There's neither one of those other two alternatives a useful place to plan anything. Now, obviously they have their influence, and we'd be lost without them. But for this, when you're in such a pickle, for want of a better expression, just live in the moment, man. And living in the moment's okay. And you'd be surprised, the other thing, one of the many things that I get inspired by this podcast is your talk about Jungian psychology and synchronicity. And just, asking, and the universe seems to give you a wink and a nod and gives you some encouragement. I didn't have any money for food today. And my landlady said to me, she says, I live on a farm, and the farmer had been out with his dogs and he'd shot 2 geese. Would I like goose steak for my dinner? Wow. Goose steak, it's absolutely intense. And, and I ended up eating a full roast, like a full meal, which has sustained me through the course of the day. In answer to the question, what choice do you have? And sometimes such a stark reality can give you a real clear vision. It's like, well, the career's stuffed. That one's really getting flushed down the toilet. My credibility as a clinician's stuffed. 20 years of dedication to one particular field of nursing science, and no one's going to take me seriously. Bloody marvellous. What can I do next? Well, I've got a few ideas, and let's approach that wholeheartedly, because it might be a good thing to do, but it's going to allow me to, like I said in the beginning, it's going to allow me the opportunity to embrace and engage with something that is more creative, which is something that I've picked up, put down, and now I want to pick up and run with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that it's the idea of the here and now is something that a lot of creative people listening can get to as well, just with their art as well. Like, just with whatever they're doing, it's not worrying about tragic times in the past, especially having to do with their art. Times where, like the crowns came out the wrong way. You know what I mean? And also not worrying too much about the future. It's just like sticking with whatever it is that you decided to do, sticking with that now and trying to enjoy that now. And I can't wait to see what ideas you've come up with, and I can't wait to see where you go, and I can't wait to get you back on the show in like 6 months' time and see all the progress that you've made, and just as a great comparison to this one.
Yeah, that'd be so cool to do, and it would be, I'm really confident that I'd have something to contribute. Now, whether I'm earning a living doing whatever that might be or not, I really don't know. And in a certain respect, that doesn't trouble me that much, because I'm very fortunate to live in a world where my mum and my brother are still with me, and they're really, really supportive. So I'm really confident that I can come back and talk again about how I've taken things and what opportunities have been presented to me, a person going out into the world with creative ideas and what that's been met by. And I think that's a really, really significant part of the creative process. It's, well, I've got all this energy. I'm going to put it in this direction, and I want to go out into the world and do whatever it is, whether it's being a jazz guitarist, whether it's being an illustrator. I've got half an idea to be a tattoo artist at the moment. Based on my ability to draw and based on an expanding industry, with limitless skin. People are still being born. And they grow up and think, stay with me, man, stay with me. I'm not going to tattoo babies. People grow up into adults and they want ink. And, I sat and watched the cricket. England were playing, Bangladesh, and we won. Cricket's great. It's like baseball,
but it lasts like a day.
No. Contentious issue. Sorry, baseball fans. I really love you and baseball. Anyway, the point I'm making is the captain, or one of the batsmen rather, from the English cricket team had a full sleeve of ink, and that's somebody representing his country. David Beckham, soccer player, absolutely covered, see what happens next, man. It'll be interesting. I can guarantee you that. And it'll be something to talk about.
Yeah, well, keep me updated, and then we'll get you back on the show, too.
Will do.
Before we let you go, though, it's time for the final push, as you know. It's obligatory. So, and as you know, this is where I ask you to reach to the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today, or maybe even to yourself. Just give yourself the best advice you can and push them or yourself to do it.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, this is the advice that I've been giving to myself over the last few months, as I come to realize that I've got a golden opportunity in the manure of this experience. A rose can grow. And the advice is really straightforward, but it's a bit of a shift. And the advice is this: is to remind you that you're not a human being on a spiritual journey. You're a spiritual being on a human journey. And that subtle difference, which might not be immediately apparent to you, gives all the hallmarks of the idiosyncrasies, the fears, the hang-ups, the intolerances, the procrastinations. And it is always going to be that way. You are always going to be living that experience as you try and move forward as a creative, spiritual being, living through this human experience. So, you're in good company. Just strive on, try your best, show up every day, and you'd be surprised what comes through.
You would be surprised. And dude, thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing your story and for being a fan of the podcast and being such a great supporter, man.
It's an absolute pleasure, man. I tell you something you say to us at the end of your show. You go, love you guys, and we love you too, man. I can guarantee you, we're all out there going, yo, young man, because honestly, you've really influenced the amount of confidence that I have in the process I'm about to engage in, and the way you bring people together, and the way that you substantiate that opinion and then offer it to other people. It's a real gift for the world, man. So we love you too, young man. You keep up the good work.
Thanks, man. You're gonna make me cry. Thanks.
Don't go all Kleenex on me, man.
No, I appreciate it. That's really nice of you. Thank you. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. Your Instagram account to find you, or is there anywhere else?
Yeah, no. You can find me at Saddhasura anywhere. I'm on Facebook with that name, Instagram, Twitter, all your usual social media sort of platforms. I'm there. Some of it's a bit empty at the moment. I'm just trying to bring it together so there's a consistency, but content is coming.
Awesome. Content is coming. I love it. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Man. Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Take care, bud.
My thank you to Saddhasura for coming on the show. It's such a pleasure to meet some amazing people through this podcast. And there was certainly a lot to learn from this episode, especially about mindfulness, about starting each day with a clear intention, and that idea of continuity of purpose throughout. your day and throughout your week as you strive to achieve this creative goal or life goal, whatever it is that you've kind of set out to achieve. That continuity of purpose is so important, to always be mindful of that, so that when doubt and indecision do creep in, which they are going to creep in, they're guaranteed to creep in, especially as you get closer and closer to kind of achieving this new life that you've set out to create for yourself, being ever mindful that that is gonna happen to you and you have to push through it. And having that clear goal, that clear intention in your mind will help you to set aside those bad habits that you already have when you make that clear decision that that's what you want to get out of life, that you want to replace it with a creative habit. There's such a power that comes from that. And then when life does get tough, when life does get rough, to maintain that kind of an attitude that he has is amazing to me. And it's really, really inspiring. And I just love that idea of kind of tying yourself to the mast to feel the storm. I love that image. Just experiencing it to its fullest, the here and now, even when it's rough, and learning from it. Tying yourself to the mast and feeling it, as opposed to just running to the hull of the ship, and curling up in the fetal position. There's a much better way to approach it, and I just think that there's so much we can learn from this episode when times get tough. So once again, thank you to Saddhasura. You can check out all of his stuff at saddhasura.com, saddhasura.com. You can head to the show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/169. And hey, definitely reach out to me if you are a fan of the show and if you think that you could have something to contribute, like Saddhasura did. I think we all have different stories, we all come from different walks of life, and we all have different ways of approaching our creativity in life. So definitely reach out to me, even if you don't want to come on the show, just to reach out and say hello and tell me your story. I would love to hear from you. It inspires the hell out of me. Hit me up, youngman@yourcreativepush.com. But that's all we've got for you today. Hopefully you're inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. And we'll be here for you on Thursday if you need the push again. If you haven't heard about the change in scheduling for the podcast, you can head to yourcreativepush.com/family to listen to that episode. But we are now at 2 episodes a week, so we will see you on Thursday. But until then, get some amazing work done. I love you all, and we will see you then. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.